Hello, fabulous friends, fans, and superstars. Welcome to Synchronicity Web TV. I am your host, Nadiya Shah, and this is your moment of synchronicity. Well, I'm so excited to celebrate with you today, Gemini Brett. Now, you know, when I do a speaker series at Synchronicity University, and yes, Gemini is coming to Synchronicity University as part of the May 2024 speaker series, and you've got just a couple weeks left to choose your tuition rate as low as just $5 a class, which is an unheard of rate to learn from the one and only Gemini Brett. But yeah, you know, when I do the speaker series, I always try to have like one big dog, and then the Aquarian in me loves to have it be like on the same stage, metaphorically speaking, with people who are like future superstars. Well, of course, I think everybody watching this knows that Gemini Brett is our resident superstar astrologer, big dog astrologer for this series. And Gemini is somebody who is so distinct in astrology, widely respected. And the thing that really makes him stand out as unique is the way in which he encourages you to feel the sky, to know the sky, and understand that it is your relationship with the literal sky that is part of making you a better astrologer and understanding your chart better as well. So you're about to see why Gemini Brett is one of the best in our field. Gemini, thank you for being here. I'm so happy to have you here.
It's my pleasure. I was wondering who the big dog was. It's like, oh gosh, it's me. I better show up.
Yeah, you're the big dog.
That's really an honor to be called that. Thank you. And I'm so excited to bring some of my passion for the heavens and earth to Synchronicity University. Thank you for the invitation.
Of course. And I have had just a little bit of a chance to get to know you here and there on the circuit, as they say. And I know the crowds that you draw, how many people come out of your talks feeling like they understand themselves and the sky better. And your way of expressing things is graspable, but it's poetic. And so I think that is part of what makes you stand out. But also the fact that your knowledge, like the scientific knowledge you have of the sky is quite incredible. So do you remember when it was that you sort of realized the science is the spiritual?
What a fun question. Um, I mean, there was a moment where I kind of got my marching orders. I was in Peru, actually, and I was down there for the beginning of the end of the beginning of the end of the world thing in 2012, where I was on Machu Picchu. But a couple of weeks before, I was in the jungle, and I had this experience with Jupiter where I just heard plain English, and it started with "Sit down, boy," and it was like a 4 hour either psychotic break or conversation with the planet, and I lean towards the latter because the former story is terrifying to me. And it ended with "Now go spread the word." It was like, okay. But that was a conversation that was basically born of, at that time, I had just turned on to astrology. And so for the first time in my life, I learned I was more than just a Scorpio. And so I knew that Gemini was like important for me, and I knew Jupiter was in Gemini, but Jupiter was in the horns of the bull in the sky. And before I came to astrology, I was studying a lot of different mystical traditions that speak about the turning of the ages and precession of the equinoxes. And so I was kind of like aware of that framework, but this is the first time I experienced it, you know? And I think maybe that's the closest I can get to where I think maybe that moment. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's like my school is called the School of Earth Astrology. And the whole idea is that astrology is so much more than some symbolic language alone. Astrology is the poetic breath of nature. And when we reconnect our astrology to the living sky, we will remember the roots of the rules and the proofs of the equations we use. And so I don't know, I mean, like the plants brought me to the planets, and that might be part of it. But I've also like always had a fascination for the sky and for space and stuff. So I might just be configured that way. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I love that question. I'll be tripping on it for a while.
That's amazing because I mean, I remember as a child looking up at the sky and just being able to feel it in my heart. And
Mm.
I don't think it's that uncommon for children to have a fascination with the sky and rocket ships and want to get up close to them by going to space. And I just feel that it might be very innate. It's part of what it is to be human, is to feel our connection to the sky. And how wonderful that you had that awakening that reminded you of that.
Yeah, and I love how you share that because, and I bring a lot of astrologers out to the sky, and we have to often get past this obstacle where people are kind of like shaming themselves for not knowing which of those lights is Jupiter and which is Mars, and not knowing where the constellations are, and right, which just slams the temple into the mysteries, like slams the door shut. And I always have to like take some time to remind them that like the password to the temple of the sky is just awe and wonder and excitement, and it's so much more available to like our child self who just lives, or at least is like built to live in that space. So I just love so much, Nadiya, how you shared that, because it's like that's it, right? And it's less about classifying things and learning the ancient names and knowing which stars live at which degree. Like that's all great, and it's something I really love to share. But what I most love to share is just to help people return and open their heart to the marriage of heaven and earth. And before we deal with like the science of the thing, to just be in the sacred of it. And so the experience of the heavens, which can get lost in, the mental space, is really just, it starts in the heart and then we bring it down into the body, right? And that's my general wish, is that I will contribute in the time of my life to helping astrologers embody their craft and bring it out of the space of the mind and into the body, so there would be more opportunity for it to play in the heart in between.
And it is from that space that we are able to be better astrologers in all
Mm.
kinds of ways, perhaps. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, my first mantra, like literally to remind myself how to be a better astrologer when I'm honored to be in session with somebody, is heart before chart. And the art of the chart starts in the heart, right? Because I love to play in the mental space and all the techniques and all the things that we can do, right? But just to honor that I'm sitting with a beautiful being with an awakened heart, and like if we start there, right? So yeah, I mean, anything we can do to get more into our body, more into our experience, more into our incarnation, more into that heart space will be better whatever we're doing. And you and I have been called to practice in this cosmic craft. Yeah, so absolutely.
Yeah, but I also think it is very powerful to interpret from that place of heart, because astrology, the way I see it, is that the sky just is, right? It is there for us to interpret, and you can't have astrology without the astrologer. And different things bring people to the sky, bring the people to interpret that sky. But it so happens to be that you and I are very heart oriented, that we are able to see that when we look out onto the world.
Yeah, and there should be as many astrologies as there are astrologers. Like the scientist in me does not like that statement. That one wants like this perfect way to do a chart, and then we deal with the, challenge of astrology. There's so many different paradigms, and so many of them seem to contradict or even conflict. I like to say there's so many ways to pet the cosmic cat, and as long as she's purring, it's cool. Do you know what I mean? But the sacred in me just honors, like, astrology is going to come through Nadiya in a different way than it comes through me. And people are going to resonate with your medicine. And as your astrology grows and shifts, like that's going to shift like who you share it with, right? And you share astrology with so many people, right? Because you do have that like very open and interested heart. Yeah. So, but for some people, they want more of kind of that cold framework of fatalistic, timeline, which I'm also interested in. And so, yeah, I try not to get down on how different astrologers are practicing, or how I used to practice, or how I will practice, or whatever, and just know that like if we're in service to translating the celestial conversation in the way that it's coming through for us without like interrupting that with our, I don't know, shame and ego stuff, then it's going well.
Right now, as we speak, we are gearing up for an eclipse in a few days. That eclipse, and in particular, Chiron, is exactly conjunct my Jupiter.
Mhm.
And the last time that this happened last year, it wasn't an eclipse, it was only Chiron. And I had personally, as part of my own journey, kind of a crisis of faith. Um, to me, it was about how can the universe be wise and loving when there's so much cruelty in the world? And I
Mhm.
sort of felt very confronted by the cruelty in the world based on some things that I had seen when I traveled. And it still gets me really emotional to think about the injustices that are out there, the ways in which really innocent people and children and animals and the experiences that they have, it hurt me so deeply at the time that it put me in a crisis of faith. And so now here we are, we're at an eclipse, and I just feel inspired to ask you, because I'm going to be staring at the eclipse with glasses, a total eclipse with a bunch of astrologers in Niagara Falls. What should I be meditating on? Because I'm finding it arise again. I'm finding myself getting emotional again. Uh, and I want to continue to affirm love and wisdom in the world because I believe that so strongly. But I have these moments, especially as of late, where I'm questioning, where does a universe and a sky imbued with love, how does that reconcile with a world that also has its contrast?
It doesn't. And I, first of all, I'll just say, like, that's such a courageous and beautiful share. And I think that that is the appropriate response to the craziness of this world. I spent a lot of time in like ceremonies just asking, like, why war? Right? I mean, if indeed it's true what I've been led to believe, that there is only one thing that ever was, is, and will be, that everything is spirit. How can that be true in a place with such madness as this, to like our own individual traumas and to the collective traumas without, right? And it really feels to me like the embodied experience, which, as far as I'm concerned, is an experience that must happen in a place with the appearance of time and space, because that allows us to make moves and allows us to grow and change. Like, spirit is everything, and therefore it's kind of like nothing. It won't grow. It's already everything, but it will never stop doing so because of miracles like you, which is spirit reflected through soul into matter, into the place with the appearance of time and space, which offers us to make moves, which offers us to grow. But to do so, you got to dance to the song of your soul. And oftentimes, the music gets a lot louder through some of the painful experiences. Now, it's really important. I think you're a great teacher of this, like, not to fall prey to the idea that no pain, no gain. But it is true that we grow through what we go through. So, I mean, importantly, you can also like learn to grow through bliss and happiness, as long as you remember to ask why me, like when you're in that initiation, as much as you're kind of forced to when you're in the pain space, right? Um, but on one level, I can just say, and it's kind of, I guess, revealing the Scorpio in me, you don't awaken from dreams, you awaken from nightmares. And so, having the courage as a soul to experience that and not to turn your head away from it offers opportunities for you to open your eyes more and more and more. And if it doesn't hurt your heart, you're not doing it, because it is terrible. And there's also that kind of weirdness of privilege, like when you're looking at war and death on the internet stream and you're not personally experiencing it in that moment. Okay, you are, because you're everything. But there's also a deep opportunity there to shift into even more presence of gratitude. And that's such a magical and important medicine for self, and therefore soul, and therefore spirit. In other words, all that is. And it's amazing that you're speaking about the time of this coming eclipse, I mean, as you know better than most, here we have an Aries eclipse with Chiron. So there's something big about healing. It has an alignment for you and for me to Jupiter. I was born pretty close to you in time, and so our Jupiters are rather aligned. Um, they do different things in our charts, whatever. Like, so working the eclipse and how it speaks to each native, but also how it speaks to the world is so important. And one of the ways that many of us astrologers are going to look at what an Aries eclipse does is to quickly look for Mars. And there's a Pisces Mars with Saturn, with this Aries eclipse between them in the Taurus Jupiter Uranus. Everything's kind of gathered together. Like you might, in the experience of total solar eclipse, you should be able to, clouds allowing, see Venus and see Jupiter during totality. So make sure you're looking, all right? But you might also see that Mars Saturn conjunction. And probably not Mercury, but it's going to be an amazing experience. And I think that Pisces Mars and that Pisces Mars Saturn, there's like, like, this is the wrong word. It's a paradox to say it like this, but I will anyway. Compassion is worth fighting for, right? And like union, togetherness, right? Individuating, not to separate from the one dream that we're all here to live in all of its losses and gains and pleasures and pains, but individuating to be more of a part of it, but you're in your own unique way. And yeah, I mean, this has taken me into my religion, but as far as I'm concerned, like the moon is an incarnational device who reflects the one light in a unique way that will never repeat. And that's what a soul is. I don't think of a soul as like some little division of the one only thing. That's impossible. It is indivisible. But Hermes said it this way: all things have been and arose from one through the meditation of one. So all things have their birth of this one thing by adaptation. And the general idea is like, when you and I take a good look at ourselves, like, who are you looking at and who's looking? And somehow spirit just took a look at itself and a soul is born. Where I speak of a soul as like not some piece of the thing, but the entire thing, but in a unique reflection. And this is Moon's job. Mythically, we hear that Diana deliver her brother Apollo's birth. Moon delivers sunlight to Earth. And I think Moon in this way literally delivers an opportunity for the one thing spirit to have an ensouled experience that must incarnate into matter so we can grow. Through feeling, healing, knowing, we grow. Yeah. And the eclipse time is the most amazing time because you can see in the heavens, in the sky with your human eyes, that soul, moon, and spirit, sun are the same size. Have you watched a total solar eclipse before?
Not in person like this ever before. And
Okay. So let me
yeah.
give you, sorry to interrupt you.
Yes,
Let me
please.
just give you a couple of tips, right?
Okay.
And I'm envious because we're going to watch a partial eclipse here, but we're having a baby in June, and this will be our baby's prenatal eclipse, and we decide to like witness it from the birthing room and do our magic and clear some space, It's the most amazing thing ever. Bring a coat and a hat and a scarf. It doesn't matter if you're in a really hot place or a really cold place. During totality, it will drop like 15 degrees Fahrenheit. And you feel that temperature differential in a huge way. So have like warm stuff next to you that you don't have on until totality. Okay. Be by a tree, because as the eclipse is forming, you get all the shadows look like little light crescents, and trees cast tons of shadows. Like every twig will make a little crescent sun on the ground. It's crazy. Okay. Just as the eclipse is like perfecting, so you're seeing that last sliver bow of sunlight, take your glasses off and look west. And there will be a shadow wall traveling at you at a gazillion miles per hour. That's typically very difficult to see. I haven't seen that, but it's been seen before. Okay. And then you have your glasses off, which is imperative. I've heard these sad stories of people who watched the total solar eclipse and never took their glasses off. And that's where the magic lives. So like once you have totality, it's completely safe to look around. Like that shadow wall comes and then you have the weirdest experience because it's 360 degrees twilight. and it gets quiet. You know, usually we humans are like, woo, and that's beautiful, like, because it inspires that awe and that wonder again. But, you know, like the birds, the insects, they do their night routine. And so there's this amazing, like, quiet that's, I think, really profound and beautiful. This is a pretty long period of totality during this coming eclipse. Um, yeah, and then just being with it in every way you do, and then, you know, seeing the phases then go backwards. It's a really cool thing about eclipse, like the symbolism's rather clear. We enter the shadow, so new light can be born, right? And you get to see like every shape the moon makes in the course of a month. Another shape she can't, within the matter of minutes. So there's this like acceleration factor, right? And then the cool thing, like in astrology, our charts go both ways, right? So the moon is rising before the sun, but then she's passing the sun this way. As together they move from the east to the west, the moon is moving faster from the west to the east, right? And that's how you can experience the occultation like that. So you get this thing of like moving both ways in time, and you get this experience of like going back into the shadows of the past to birth new light for the present and the future. And as all things, the present of your presence is the greatest gift. So also forget all that stuff I just said, except for the coat part, and just be with it.
That is something I will hold very close and remind myself of. And that's great advice for everybody out there who is going to be witnessing the eclipse as well. It's the first of my life that I will be seeing a totality. And so I look forward to seeing how that shows up in terms of the work that I do, because I think for you and I both, this work isn't about necessarily just work. It is what our soul is called to do, as you mentioned earlier. And we have the great privilege of also having that be in tandem with the work that we do.
Yeah, it's amazing to make a living when you're
Wow.
making a living. You know,
Yeah.
it's really nice to realign to kind of your design in vocation. It's, you know, it's interesting in astrology, like the first and the 10th are inherently square, and it's very beautifully expressed, not so beautifully by like the way that most will be working a job that seems to do nothing with who they are. But when we break through that, like that's another like nightmare. That's like a tension thing that will lead to the resolution, right? And when we choose to do what we have to do, like it's hard to choose astrologer for most of us, right? What would the parents think? What about society, etc.? Like I imagine you, like me, just like smile and say, "I'm an astrologer" when you're out at a party and you're asked what you do or whatever. But it's a tricky thing for folks, and especially in pockets of the world, and it can be very isolating to study the stars and feel like you're the only one in that. So it's so beautiful to have like Synchronicity University, right? Like these colleges that bring people together in fellowship. It's really important. I don't even know where we were when I started this flow, but yeah, it's really lovely to have like my own personal practice and then my professional practice very similar. But you know, like I'm in other people's charts more than I'm in my own, right? So that it'll like times like this, like a significant eclipse, where I remember to also like look at my astrology, because I, you know, part of my own hmm, I don't know. Part of my own challenges in spirituality is, what is astrology? How does it work? How much am I just manifesting what I think I'm supposed to because I'm seeing that? If it is that, isn't that okay? Especially if I'm choosing to be a better person thanks to the initiations I'm seeing, you know, in my own personal timings, whatever, right? But I just kind of go back and forth between like, the way I usually like to share is to share this dream I had where I was driving and I was passing this strip mall and I saw this yellow awning for a shop that said psychic. And I drove into the parking lot, and right next door there was one with the same yellow awning in the same font, and it said skeptic. And I was like, oh, I shop at both of those places. And I woke up and like, and that's okay. So this is a weird place for me to find myself in that simple question you asked. But yeah, like I love practicing astrology, especially because it gives me time and time again opportunities to look at some of my own resistances of how the world works, what it is, how it can work, the forces that are at play, and all those kinds of things. And are we playing with them, or are they playing us, right? Like those kinds of questions that really come to life. And it's so brilliant, as I know you know, Nadiya, to see things like an eclipse or like global lockdowns and see these like, global things, but see how they participate with individuals. So there's a collective, and then there's a unique, particular way that these things express. And it's really such a gift to be in this practice where we get to see how some of these kind of great global movements of the celestial symphony also sing in a unique way to each being that's here incarnated. So I can't remember what the question is, but yeah, I love being an astrologer.
Yeah, I know, me too. You always take it to perfect places. And I think everybody out there can see why you are one of the best astrologers out there, why you
Oh,
have all the respect and recognition that you do. And once again, everybody, remember Gemini Brett is our big dog astrologer as part of the May 2024 speaker series at Synchronicity University. I'm going to rush to get this up before the eclipse so that people can really take the advice and use it in very practical ways right away, because the advice is so great. And I'll be holding that advice as well very close. So, Gemini, thank you. Thank you for the safe space you created here, because I hadn't planned to be vulnerable and to share, but I'm glad I did, because it just felt like you were the one to talk to about this. And it is very obvious why you have so much love and so much wisdom in your astrology. And it shines forward.
mm. Well, thank you for having the courage to be vulnerable and share and to speak for many hearts out there who have that same initiation to move through. Yeah. And again, my general feeling is if it doesn't hurt, you're actually not looking. Um, but just asking the questions like can help us bring us to better questions and more interesting things and help us do what I'm sure we came here to do. I hope the eclipse is amazing for you. Thank you again so
You
much for
too.
having me here and to speak about me in such shining ways. It's like it opens my heart. And I'm very excited to speak about the void, of course, moon, and actually how throughout time there's very different ways to consider that. And speak about the other side of that coin, which isn't taught enough, which is the translation of light. Like, why not be there, right? It's a really wonderful thing to learn because it exercises all of these wonderful little astronomical and astrological and geometrical pieces of our tradition. So I'm excited to share some of that love of translation of light with this community of light at Synchronicity University. So I hope to see y'all there.
Yes, I hope to see lots of people there as well. And just the way that you explained right now, the eclipse and different celestial phenomenon, and how that is a reflection of us, and to help us to understand that. I know you do that in every talk. That's the
Mm.
thing. In every talk, you connect heart and sky and help people understand the celestial phenomenon, but what that means symbolically. I think that is something very special about the talks that you do.
Thank you, Nadia.
Thank you again, Gemini. I'm so grateful for you and this moment. And thank you, everybody out there, for watching. Until we connect again, take care. Bye.